Greetings, Alafia, Sawabona, welcome. My name is Renee Ifagbaye Ishubola Ayalagbeg Kimberly Smith. I am the daughter of Maureen and Dr. Richard Smith and Stephen Tyson. I am the granddaughter of Violet and Jacob Chevalier, of Brodell Anderson and Cecil Smith. I am the great granddaughter of Lucille Benoit and Eddie Benoit. I come to you today and introduce myself in this way because I never stand alone. Those who've come before me, those who are ancient, those who give me the ideas that need to come forth, stand with me at all times. And I also introduce myself that way because when this journey is over, it'll be the pathway for those who come after. So I thank you for joining us and welcome to Be the Medicine, Pathways to Healing and Liberation Through Ancestral Intelligence. Pathways to Healing and Liberation Through Ancestral Intelligence. Greetings and welcome to Be the Medicine, Pathways to Healing and Liberation Through Ancestral Intelligence. I'm so excited to be with you all today. And thank you all for your patience. I know we have been silent for a little while, but we've had a lot of things cooking and working on a couple of things to birth them into reality. One of them was our 4th annual Grand Rising Summer Solstice Summit, which was called and themed Be the Medicine, on Friday, June 21st, 2024, from 5 a.m. to 5 p.m. It was such a success. It was such a portal that was opened. I want to give a great shout out to all of our facilitators, all of the folks who participated all around the world in fire chats, all of the ones who got on and really shared their medicine with community. It was an amazing opportunity for us to come together with the power of the summer solstice, really pushing us to move into our next phase of evolution. It was very transformative. And, I had a talk back with the facilitators. And one of the things that they told me is as much as it was an honor to give, it was also an honor to receive. And so the fact that reciprocity was existing in that space is something that really warms my heart and reminds me that this work and the work that we do is so important. So, shout out to all of the artists, the storytellers, to the leaders, to the priests who lent their prayers at the very beginning of the day, to those who created our playlist, to Morgan, who was our tech help, and to everyone who joined us from all over the world. We had France, we had Puerto Rico, we had the Netherlands, we had Nigeria, we had Ghana, we had all different states from the United States present. I know that our ancestors were proud, and I know that the work that we did and the seeds that were planted are going to be bringing great harvest and be fruitful in the future. So I thank you, I thank you, I thank you. We have also published a book. We published on August 1st our first book, Be the Medicine, Pathways to Healing Liberation Through Ancestral Plant Intelligence. And this book is kind of the jumping point for where the podcast started and some of the ideas where the podcast started. But also, as you know, my love for flowers, flower essences, plants, and plant intelligence. And so this was an opportunity to put it into a book, and through the book, being able to continue to share these ideas with the community. If you missed the summit, please check out our YouTube page, Be the Medicine. We're going to be posting snippets from different lessons from the Mbongi learning sessions, from some of the fireside chats, from some of the healing sessions from the healers. So check out and follow us on YouTube, Be the Medicine, and you'll be able to check out some of the folks who really we're able to hold space for community on that day, but also you'll get information about what they're doing and how to connect to their medicine. Greetings, everyone. Oh my goodness, we did a thing. We published our book, Be the Medicine Pathways to Healing and Liberation Through Ancestral Plant Intelligence, on August 1st, 2024. Yay! We are so excited. And we hope that you will continue to join us with this journey. You can purchase the book on Amazon.com in both Kindle and physical form. And please stay tuned, join our mailing list so that you can hear about our book launch. You can hear about our book talks and some of the book discussions that will be happening throughout the fall. Again, Be the Medicine Pathways to Healing and Liberation Through Ancestral Plant Intelligence by Renee K. Smith. Pathways to Healing and Liberation Through Ancestral Plant Intelligence by Renee K. Smith. Today's topic is We Are Portals. So you would ask, well, why are we talking about this today? And I think what was the impetus for this particular episode was maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago. I was having reoccurring conversations, not the same conversation, but very themed conversations with different clients around trauma and where trauma lives in the body and how trauma can stop us from actually bringing our gifts into reality. And if you know the body, as a Reiki practitioner and as a person who is very much in tune kinesthetically, we know that we have not just chakras, but we are portals in and of ourselves, right? Women are portals. We are portals that give birth to children, but also we have the ability to be creative portals. Like when we have a project and we want to birth it into the world, we have a business that we want to birth into the world, we have an idea that we want to birth into the world. The idea of being a portal is that we are portals in order to bring the divine into the manifestation on earth. I'll say that one more time. In being a portal, it is our purpose to bring the divine into its manifestation here on earth. In being a portal, it is our purpose to bring the divine into its manifestation here on earth. And so many things have happened to us along our journey that may stop us from believing in that power. And what I've realized is that people, places, things occur to kind of take us off that path. And one of the things that I want us to remember is that our path is our path. And what we have to bring to the earth, what we have to bring to the world, the magic and medicine that is necessary, can only be brought by us. That your story becomes your testimony. How you overcame and transformed from that challenge becomes the thing that someone else needs to hear, the story someone else needs to hear, the words that someone else needs to hear. Your story, your medicine, your magic. That's why we are portals. So we want to think about the trauma, right? And I talk a little bit about this idea of untriggering the trigger. And so untriggering the trigger doesn't mean tomorrow I feel better and then you're never going to be triggered again. No, it means that many times the things that have triggered us now have resided in our bodies in different types of ways. Many times it's muscle memory, many times it's remembrance in our mind. It can be a sound, it can be a smell, it can be all different things. But we have to remember that we also have the ability to create new pathways in our brain, to retrain our nervous system to no longer be triggered. It doesn't mean the memory goes away. It means that our body's response to the memory no longer holds a space that makes us uncomfortable, no longer holds a space that stops us from being able to move forward. In some instances, we have to even learn how to move forward in spite of the trigger occurring so that we can retrain our minds and our bodies. So, we want to talk about some of these triggers. Some of the triggers can be sexual trauma, it can be physical trauma, it can be emotional trauma, it can be issues with abandonment, can be all types of things that will stop us from being able to bring into the world the things that are our gift. And one of the things I want to talk about are the narratives, right? These traumas create narratives of we're not enough, we don't know, we don't think we know. It also creates the opportunity for us to break trust. One of the things I talk about a lot is how do we restore trust with ourselves, right? Because before we can do anything else in the world, we've got to trust ourselves. And one of the things that trauma does is it breaks trust with ourselves. We made a decision, the decision didn't go well, it didn't turn out the way we thought it would, and we feel like a failure. But in that failure, we then take onus of the failure instead of the lesson of we need to do this a different way. And so in taking onus of the failure, we start to stop trusting our own decision making. Right? We have a thought and we say, no, that can't be it because, it didn't work out the last time. But many times the thing that's not working out could be situational, right? You didn't have all of the right components for it to move forward in the way in which you envision. It doesn't mean that we take the F as a failure. We take the F as a G. We take it as a growth moment, right? An opportunity for us to learn about ourselves, learn about the way that we interact with others, and see, okay, that didn't work out. Oh, I didn't put up a really good boundary for this. Oh, I didn't really like the way that they said that. It doesn't mean that we have to replay those situations over and over again. But it does mean that it gives us an opportunity to continue to build our confidence and our trust with ourselves, understanding that our inner knowing is the most important knowing that we have. Where trauma comes in is that it creates a void, it creates a break in our trust, not just with ourselves. It's one thing when we have trauma that we may have self-inflicted, meaning failure or things that didn't work out. But when it comes from other people, it creates the narratives around us being able to be in relation with each other, to relate to others. And part of those narratives can really stop us from bringing our magic to the world. Greetings, everyone. This is Renee Smith from Be the Medicine podcast, wanting to share a special opportunity with you. We have our Goddess Rising Winter Solstice retreat getting ready to happen in December. This is our fourth year of doing this retreat, but this is our second year doing it internationally, and it will occur in Belize, Central America. My family is actually from Belize, so it's going home for me, and I really love being able to be there with my family, creating sacred space for us to move into the spirit of the divine feminine. So, Goddess Rising Winter Solstice Retreat 2024. Relax, relate, retreat, restore. The Goddess Rising Winter Solstice Retreat is an opportunity for Black and Brown women to create and celebrate in sacred space the transition into the divine feminine energy of winter. These are the times where we rest, conceive, receive, and plant seeds for the next harvest season. This retreat is cultivated with four main principles in mind. Relax, let down your hair and just be. Relate, connect and build a community. Retreat, we must take time for ourselves. Restore, we take this time to restore trust in ourselves, our bodies, sisterhood, and the future. So, please join us. Goddess Rising Winter Solstice Retreat 2024, December 16th through December 23rd, Belize, Central America. One of the things that I've recognized in growing and my own, personal journey is that sometimes you got to call a spade a spade. And I apologize in advance for any folks who are offended by profanity, but I'm going to say it. Sometimes some things are just fucked up. And you got to be okay with saying, yo, that was fucked up. And you got to leave it. You don't need to pick it up, but you got to call a spade a spade. You got to call the person that did such and such to you. Yo, that was messed up. I didn't deserve that. And understand that many times when things are happening to you, it's not about what you deserved. It's really the reflection of the person's own misunderstanding of themselves and believing that projecting it on you makes them feel better. And so sometimes we've got to put down that narrative. And sometimes the only way to put down the narrative is to call a spade a spade. This was messed up. I am no longer making myself accountable for someone else's actions. Right? Your healing cannot begin if you're still trying to figure out why they did what they did. Unless you're going to go and have that conversation and ask the question and understand that they may not understand and you may not get closure, that it is okay to say, yo, that was fucked up, and call it a day. And then do the work that's necessary for you to forgive yourself so that you're no longer holding that person's burden. You can't make them accountable because if they don't want to be accountable, there's nothing you can do about them. But what you can do is you can offer forgiveness for yourself. Because in you forgiving yourself, in you forgiving yourself, not just the self that exists right now, as you are recognizing that that needs to occur in your healing process, but also the self that occurred when the trauma existed. Because what is most important is that that version of yourself understands that it wasn't your fault. And in understanding that it wasn't your fault, you give yourself space and time to begin to heal, to reconnect to the person who you may have let go in order for you to survive. And that if you got into that place where you can go to that part of yourself and say, hey, it's time for us to let that go, then you're going to be able to move forward with all the phases of yourself. Understanding that the person that you were a year ago, the person that you were 2 years ago, the person that you were 5 years ago, it's not the same person, right? So we give credit to the fact that you are growing and that this particular moment in time, the Bantu people call, in Bongi, the Bantu people call a very specific role called the not giver, the person who records the meetings or the messages or the things that occur in the Mbongi. Their role is a knot giver. Their person, they go and they tie the knot in the cord to remind us of what's happening. And part of our healing process is actually to go back to the cord and to untie the knot. And it requires us to be really honest about ourselves. I'm really honest about what we've picked up, what narratives we picked up, what narratives we begin to believe, and what stories we continue to play in our minds in order for us to survive. But if we're willing to thrive, we've got to untie the knot and put it down. That sometimes is the hardest thing for us to do. And so we need assistance with that. We need to figure out what are the different ways, what are the different modalities that we can engage in to begin to untie the knot. We are portals. That person, that thing, that trauma that occurred because someone saw your light and thought that if they can take part of your light, it would add to their light, not recognizing that regardless of whether or not you recognize your light then or you recognize your light now, that the universe is here to support you in ensuring that your magic comes into the world. We are portals. So we want to talk about different ways in which we can begin our healing process. And I like to always share, one of the things that I share with my clients all the time is that our minds are amazing, right? Our minds are our first apothecary. Our apothecary is the place that you go to in order to find your healing. And so what our mind believes, our bodies will follow, right? What matters, right? The stories, the narratives that we say, which is why it's really important to think about the way that our ancestors talked about wellness, right? Wellness was a collective attribute. It wasn't just about what I'm doing, right? That we understand that wellness is the reflection of whether or not we are all in balance. We also recognize that in seeing wellness, we also know that each one of us have the opportunity to speak into existence our current states, which is one of the reasons, your grandmother or your great aunt or one of the elders in your family may used to say, don't say that you're sick. Never say that you're sick. Say that you're on the path to healing. Say that your body is on the path to healing. That you may be out of sync today, but you're not feeling at your most optimal. But you won't say that I'm sick. Because when you say that you're sick, the matter that matters then takes on that affirmation and becomes sick. Let me try that one more time and say it one more time for us. The matter that matters will take on the affirmation that we speak with our words that has first been created in our minds. So what's created in our minds then comes out into the universe through our words. Our words become the affirmation that our bodies will then follow. So we won't say that we are sick. We will say that we are healing. We won't say that our bodies aren't well. We will say that we are not optimal, but we are going to be restored to optimal. That understanding and those affirmations are what our ancestors understood. Because in the village, when someone wasn't well, it was everyone that came together to speak and to lay hands and to ensure that they are coming back to optimal wellness. And so the way in which we get to balance is really thinking about all of the ways in which our healing can occur. And one of the places that it occurs is in our minds. When we say we are well, we are well. When we say we are well, we are well. It only takes 1 second of a negative thought to come into place and us not saying, I'm not believing in that right now. I don't have time for that right now. If we don't push that thought away and it gets to plant seeds, it's going to continue to germinate. And so the power of us being able to move forward and heal in our lives comes first from our mind, our first apothecary, where every and all things occur, and then they manifest through our affirmations. They manifest through our affirmations, through our words. They manifest through our actions that we bring into fruition. They manifest through the plans that we have for our lives. These are all the places where it occurs. And so we've talked about the three brains before, right? And the fact that these are dynamic spaces that exist within our body. And just for a quick review, so we have our mind, our logic brain, the space of memory. This is where all of our neural pathways exist. These are the places where our memories, our long term and short term, exist. When something happens in our mind, we are accessing parts of our brain. I like to say sometimes it acts like a file cabinet, right? Where different places and different times we get to go back to certain things and we get triggered and we don't know why. And then we start remembering us playing in the street with our grandmother and so on and so forth. And so it's our mind, it's that brain that's doing that. And so it's a very powerful brain because when we learn to drive, it is a very interesting process as I am learning to drive because the brain can take in 7 to 9 things at one time, right? And so when you're learning to drive, part of the important pieces that a good driving teacher will do is that they'll make you do the same routine over and over again. Because through doing the same routine, you develop muscle memory. Meaning, when you get in the car, you'll automatically do certain things because you've been doing it over and over again, right? So they tell you to get into the car, make sure it's unparked, check your windows, put on your seatbelt, make sure that your hands are at, the proper way on your steering wheel. Check behind you. Make sure that your feet are feeling both of the pedals. So all of these things that you do as soon as you get into the car every single time, the next time you get into the car to drive, you'll notice that you'll automatically do it. And part of the reason why you'll automatically do it is because you now are developing muscle memory. The body is now taking on the job of remembering what are the steps that you need to take in order for you to learn to drive. In order for you to drive, not even learn to drive, but to drive. And as you can imagine, those steps, 7 to 9 things, that's all the brain can do, especially your short term memory. Your short term memory is not going to keep a whole lot of things. It's going to, what's happening right in front of you at that moment. But what happens when you learned how to drive? I always say that when you're first learning how to drive, you'll tell people, shut up so you can see. Meaning you don't want anyone talking to you because that's like the ninth thing. And when it's the ninth thing, you're like, I can't take that on because if I take that on, I'm not going to be able to pay attention to whatever's happening in front of me. But once you've learned how to drive, you can do a lot of other things because your muscle memory is taking over. You're going to put on the radio. You're going to sing along. You're going to talk to the person in the passenger seat. You may talk to your children in the back row. You may do lots of different things. You may wave to the person that you see crossing the street. You now have the ability to free up some of your short-term memory so that you can deal in your long-term and in your muscle memory in order to drive the car. And many times, the only time that you're really going to come to the front of your short-term memory is if something sudden happens. A ball runs and rolls in front of the car, or someone crosses, jaywalks, and you automatically have to stop the car automatically, suddenly. So those are the things that will bring the logic brain into fruition. And so to really learn how our brain works is really important because when we're on our healing journey, we have to engage our memories. We have to go deep and dig out the things that make us uncomfortable because our mind, as our apothecary, has also this ability to hide things from us because it knows that we need to survive. We'll literally forget something has happened because our mind has said they're not ready to deal with this, and so we're going to hold off on bringing it forward because it is going to cause them to no longer survive. But as we get stronger, we can begin to heal and begin to bring forth those memories, not all in one flood, but in small pieces so that we can deal with it. And through this process, we're able to begin our healing process. So that was a synopsis of our logic brain. Then we have our heart. Our heart is so amazing as a brain because it is the one space in our bodies that has actually more electrons and feelers than any other part of the body. So when you walk into the room and you're like, oh, this feels great, or you walk into the room and it's like, that's not for me, it's usually your heart space that's really taking in the space, our emotional intelligence, and saying, let's see how this feels. And in that feeling, our brain gets a signal to say we like it or we don't like it, log this in, or we say we're going to stay or we're not going to stay. We make those decisions. And what is so important about the heart is that the heart also can create disease or dis-ease and then disease in the physical heart, right? So the physical heart is responsible for flowing and allowing blood to move through our entire body. And so when we are heartsick, when we are heartbroken, when things have affected our emotional heart, our physical heart will start to show signs of dis-ease and disease. And so we have to pay very close attention to it. And it's one of the reasons why there are certain teas, specifically when we are going through heartache or heartbreak, that we should drink because they're going to help to shore up that those emotional lines are still flowing so that our physical heart doesn't actually go through heart attack or heartbreak like an actual disease. The third brain is our gut, our intuition. It's at the seat of our intuition that allows for us to experience the world, to understand our inner knowing. And so our intuition, again, this idea that as we are healing, we are restoring our trust with all these different brains, right? When we've experienced trauma, we also experience a break in our trust in these brains, right? Many times people will begin to not think with their heart because they feel like it's so vulnerable and it's been broken that we don't want to do that anymore. Or we won't trust our intuition because we trusted our intuition one time and we made a bad decision. And so by doing that bad decision, we'll never trust our intuition anymore. Or we've done something very logic and that logic didn't work. Or we sit and only do things that are logical and we don't drop into our heart brain or our gut brain because we know that we haven't been able to really get a good feeling with that. But part of our intelligence is really being able to nurture all three of those brains. And in nurturing all three of those brains, they are able to dynamically respond to what we're experiencing in our lives every day, right? That we can take in seeing children laugh and it warms our heart. That we can walk by someone and say, wow, their energy was really great. Or wow, I'm gonna walk across the street because I didn't really like what I picked up on that. We can log in our brains and stop when we see a beautiful flower or a beautiful sunset so that that stays in our memories and we have that experience to go back to, especially when we understand that our memories, when people are experiencing dementia, it's their short-term memory that's always affected, not their long-term memory. So our ability to create experiences for ourselves and memories for ourselves are very, very important because those are the things that we need to be able to go back to when we're trying to heal. Being able to look at the ocean, being able to be in the river, being able to see our children laugh, being able to hug our spouses and our partners, and being in our love language. All of those things in our healing state is very, very important. So being able to making an assessment for yourself and say, which brain am I working in? Am I more of a logic brain? Do I think with my heart? Do I have emotional intelligence? Do I need to develop emotional intelligence? What would that look like for me? What is the affirmation that I want to put forth for myself? I remember sharing with a client around narratives around abandonment and sharing that, I think the universe is starting to ask you to let go of that narrative. But if you let go of that narrative, which has been your identity for so long, what are you going to pick up, right? What becomes your I am? And, such a beautiful conversation that we had over a couple of days. And then they wrote me back maybe 3 or 4 weeks later and said, I've really been thinking about this idea that you keep telling me to put down that narrative. And what am I going to pick up? He said, my affirmation is going to be, I am love. And I'm going to learn what that means, what it means to love myself, what it means to love other people, what it means to love community, and what that means for me to be vulnerable in that space so that I can build that identity. And I was like, Ashe, that's it. Yes, I believe you. Right. And when we create a new affirmation for ourselves, a new, not even a narrative, but a new affirmation for ourselves. The universe conspires to support us and bring the people and the things and the opportunities that will help us to push forward. We are portals. I want to talk a little bit about this idea of how flower essences can assist us in our healing journey and recognizing what we've come here to do. And this first thought pattern around our mind as our apothecary and how we can begin to shift the narratives and create new affirmations for ourselves. So, I get really geeky about flower essences. I tell you all that all the time because I get to really work with them and watch their magic happen. And I also really believe that as a community, we haven't really tapped into them, and plants are around us all the time talking, and we aren't paying attention. And I think what has happened is over time, we're now starting to recognize that we're in an ecosystem that really is about us finding our balance. Things that flower essences helps us with, which is what I share about a lot, is that, flower essences is an energetic medicine. Unlike when you take herbs and herbal actions happen in the body, flower essences really happens in the mind. That we see the reflection of where the essences are really trying to help us, but many times we won't see it occur right away. It'll be really subtle. We may not notice that we're doing certain things, and then when we go back to witness ourselves, we're like, oh wow, we're doing something totally different. And so, one of the things I wanted to share a little bit about is this idea of new mindsets, new narratives, and new ways of beings. And many times, this experience can be described as quantum leap. And so, quantum leaps are in mindsets is this significant or transformative shift in how we perceive or approach different aspects of our life. Quantum leap. And so you may be experiencing a quantum leap and not realize you're experiencing it. So there are a couple of ways to recognize that you're experiencing a quantum leap. The first one is a transformation in your beliefs. Those fundamental core beliefs that you have been holding on to, those fundamental narratives that you've been holding on to that may have been created through trauma, you're starting to shake them. You're starting to question them. You're starting to be curious about, huh, I wonder if I did X instead of Y, what would happen? And so those fixed mindsets are starting to crumble. You're becoming curious about what could the narrative be about. This is the first sign that you may be experiencing quantum leap. You may also experience a breakthrough in thinking. So you may have had an issue or a challenge that you've been facing for years and haven't been able to kind of figure out your way around it. And all of a sudden, you start getting these innovative solutions to how you could actually solve this problem. You have this enhanced awareness about yourself, the way in which you are witnessing yourself. A client years ago, it was her first experience with flower essences. And over time, as we were on her journey, we started to recognize that she had developed an alter ego that had dealt with all of the trauma in her life. And that she had finally gotten to a place where she was ready to put down the fight. She was like, I don't think I have to fight anymore. And so she literally, we were in a session and she said, I actually witnessed myself telling in a situation where if this situation had happened years ago, that part of my ego would have stepped to the front and fought and belittled and cursed out, and all of the things you can think of would have happened in that moment. She said, but in that moment that the situation was happening, she took a breath. She decided in that breath how she wanted it to look on the other side. And she had to actually tell that alter ego to sit down. She said, I got this. She said, person I am today, we got this. But thank you because I appreciate you always knowing to show up for me. And the reason you show up for me is because I've been in survival mode. But I want to look at this a different way. And in that moment, she was able to witness herself and say, yeah, we're not going to do it that way. She came back, she walked me through the entire conversation. She was having a conversation with herself and witnessing herself and being in the situation at the same time. And she said, I walked away feeling like I had grown exponentially in that moment and hadn't realized that I had the ability to tell my survival self, I love you and I thank you, but I got this. And so, one of the things that you will notice when you are experiencing a quantum leap is that you start to have enhanced awareness about yourself and how you witness yourself and why you witness yourself the way you witness yourself. And also creating new goals and personal values and boundaries around who you are and who you want to be in this period. Another way in which you recognize that you're experiencing a quantum leap is that you will see a behavioral shift occur. Significant changes in your behavior, significant changes in the way in which you hang out with folks, how you hang out with yourself, what you like to do. You may have been always a person who goes out with folks. And maybe your extrovertedness may have been a part of your survival mode, meaning you did it because you didn't really like spending time with yourself. But all of a sudden, you'll notice that you've become a hermit. I love people, but I don't really want to hang out with people. I don't want to do crowds. I want to go sit in nature. I want to go for a walk. I want to go to the beach. I don't have to talk to people. I don't have to talk to people 3 times a day. I actually also don't ask for people's opinion. Something is happening where your behaviors, the way in which you interact in the world, is beginning to change because you're experiencing a quantum leap. So this experience of quantum leap, this idea that you can begin this experience of shedding narratives and creating new affirmations for yourself exists as we are recognizing that we are portals. Us being portals, us bringing our magic into the world exists because we're able to do and recognize that we are shifting. And through these shifts, we are then being able to move out of survival mode into a space of thriving. So I want to close this out by talking about a flower. Today's flower, we're going to talk about nasturtium. Nasturtium encourages us to look at our spiritual way of thinking about ourselves and allows us to come into balance with our earthly and physical reality. So, the way in which we think about ourselves and how that is rooted in our earthly and physical reality. One of the beautiful things about nasturtium, and I'm going to just describe it. Nasturtium tends to be a red or orange flower. It is actually an edible flower, with one of the things that I love about nasturtium. It's very interesting because nasturtium is a little spicy. And interestingly enough, when we use nasturtium as a flower essence, it is around this idea of developing new thoughts and new thought patterns, right? This idea of spiciness, but also the idea of newness, how we bring it into our thought pattern. Nasturtium will enhance a feeling of contentment and happiness. It also helps you to see where you are and why you are unique. When we feel sad, left out, or unwanted, nasturtium helps us to be more spontaneous and to rely less on attention from others. Nasturtium, in its spiritual meaning, because you know that all flowers and all plants, they have the physical and herbal action that it does. It has the flower essence, what it helps us in our mindset. It also has the spiritual meaning because our plants come here with all of that understanding as well. So the spiritual meaning of the nasturtium flower is this idea of victory and struggle. I'm going to say that again. It is the idea of victory and struggle, right? When you think about red and orange, you think about this passion and this idea of moving forward, even with the challenges, that you are going to be victorious. Right, you see the light at the end of the tunnel, and that nasturtium is going to help you to think about other solutions to an issue that has been really making you struggle. And so nasturtium has a very special meaning, and it really stands for victory and struggle. The orange, or the orange and reds in color that you see, represent joy and creativity, and it promotes a sense of wellness and emotional energy that should be shared through compassion, passion, and warmth. So, the way in which I've seen nasturtium work, and it's worked in many ways, but for myself personally, has been the ability to push forward and be victorious through struggle. Being able to recognize and think outside of the box. And in thinking outside of the box, we then have the ability to create new opportunities for us to be victorious. And so I love nasturtium. I think that it's one of the flowers that continues to come up, especially now that we are still in the summer, in this heightened state of being with the sun, thinking about the different ways in which we can come out of survival mode and move into thriving. And so nasturtium is one of those flowers that I use for that. The affirmation for nasturtium is, I bring new vitality to my thinking. The light of my head is warmed with the fire of the earth. I am sparked with nature's living thoughts. Again, the affirmation for nasturtium. I bring new vitality to my thinking. The light of my head is warmed by the fire of the earth. I am sparked with nature's living thoughts. Take a minute. I'm going to read that one more time. Close your eyes. Take a deep breath in. You can put your hand over your heart, or your hand over your head, or your hand over your head and your heart. But listen to this affirmation one more time. And picture in your mind a red-orange flower. Nasturtium. I bring new vitality to my thinking. The light of my head is warmed with the fire of earth. I am sparked with nature's living thoughts. Take a deep breath in and breathe out. We are portals. How can we continue to bring our light to the world? It begins with the affirmation of understanding that you are a portal. It is only going to come through you. No one else can bring your magic. No one else can bring your medicine. And if you don't bring it, we don't get to have it. So today I ask you to make the decision about bringing it into the world. And do understand, perfection is a demon. Perfection is a demon. Nothing has to be perfect. That is your ego trying to tell you that you cannot do it. I want you to stare it down and talk it down right now. Everything begins with a seed. Everything begins with a seed. You have the idea, you've got to try it in the world. I think I've said this before, I'm going to say it again. Do you know how many times they draft and create a model for a Corvette? 300 times for you to get one Corvette. That is why they can charge you the amount of money that they charge you for a Corvette. But not only do they charge you that amount of money for the Corvette, but even in that 300th model that they've put on the floor and they've sold, it's still not perfect. You know why? Because ever so often they have to call it back to do what? They have to do upgrades. You have to upgrade the system, found a part that's not going well. So even in that, it's not perfect, but it was the model they could have released and felt like this can go into the world. You have to allow yourself to birth these ideas into the world because we need your medicine. It's not going to come any other way. And every small step that you do to be able to share your light in the world is going to benefit someone else. There are people in the world that need your medicine for them to heal. There are people in the world that need your medicine for them to heal. So I ask you today, please, 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 I am pleading with you. Find your medicine, decide on what it is, and become a portal. We are all portals, not just for birthing children into the world, birthing ideas, for birthing medicine, for being with community. And if we don't do it, no one else will. We are portals. We are portals.